Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continuing from the fourth canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8, child Dhruva goes to the forest. King Uttanapada sat on a splendid throne surrounded by courtiers and ministers. Queen Suruchi sat beside him, watching as he played with their son Uttama. The king bounced baby Uttama gently on his lap, laughing to hear the infant squeal with delight. Uttama's older brother Dhruva wanted to join in the fun. He stood on his toes, reaching up to his father's knees, and tried to pull himself up. He tried repeatedly, but without success. "Daddy, I want to play too," he pleaded. The king, however, ignored him and brushed his little grasping hands away. Dhruva ran to the chief minister who stood nearby. "Help me up," he demanded, pulling on the minister's dhoti. The minister looked straight ahead, ignoring the boy. Without the king's order, he could do nothing. Dhruva tried again. Grabbing the minister's hand, he tried to pull him toward the throne. "Help me up." Suruchi's bosom heaved with annoyance. Her voice boomed out loudly. "Little boy, you're not allowed to sit either on the throne or on the king's lap." Dhruva looked in surprise at her scolding face. "He's my daddy." "Yes, but I'm not your mommy, so I forbid you." Dhruva's large eyes began to tear. "You are my mommy," Suruchi huffed. "I know you call me mommy, but another woman actually gave birth to you, so stop trying to join my son on the king's lap. Without my permission, it's not possible." King Uttanapad winced, but said nothing. Dhruva ran to his father and tried again to clamber onto his knee. Queen Suruchi pushed his hand away. "If you want to sit on the king's lap, here is my advice. Perform severe austerities to please Narayana and ask the Lord that you may take your next birth from my womb. Now run along and do not bother us anymore." Dhruva's flushed face turned up to the king. Surely his father would stand up for him. To the boy's dismay, Uttanapad did not even look at him. Dhruva began to breathe heavily, like a snake struck by a stick. He turned and ran from the court. "Wait till I tell my mommy." Dhruva ran toward his mother's rooms, wailing hysterically, followed by his two nurses. Suniti jumped from her couch as the crying got nearer. "That's Dhruva." She rushed out of her room with her maids hurrying behind her. Dhruva was scrambling up the stairs. Suniti lifted him to her arms and stroked his hot forehead. "It's okay, my child, it's okay." She cradled him in her arms and returned to her room, where she sat, her trembling son on her lap. "Tell me, what's wrong, my darling boy?" Hare Krishna, everybody. Somebody likes to take over this reading from here? Dhruva sobbed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dhruva sobbed feverishly, unable to speak. His nurses ran in behind him. Out of breath, Suniti turned to them. What has happened to the child? They looked at each other. How could they tell her? Suniti pressed them until they related everything that had occurred. On hearing how cruelly Suruchi had treated Dhruva and how his father had stayed silent, Suniti wept. How could she have spoken so harshly to such a small child? Tears flowed from her eyes and her face turned bright red. She looked up at her maidservants. What should I do? They shook her head sadly. What could she do? Suruchi was supported by the king. Dhruva wiped his eyes with his clenched fists. I'll throw her out, mummy. Suniti pulled him closer. My dear son, do not wish anyone harm. Those who inflict suffering on others will suffer the same pain. She rocked him gently on her lap, her cheek resting on the crown of his head and her tears wetting his hair. My dear boy, Suruchi is right. It is your great misfortune to have taken birth from me. The king is ashamed to accept me even as his maidservant. Never mind his wife. Dear Dhruva, I know your stepmother's words sounded spiteful, but she spoke the truth. If you want to sit on the throne like Uttama, the only solution is to follow her advice and worship Lord Narayana. Dhruva lifted his head. But mummy, she said, by worshipping Lord Narayana, I could take birth from her. I don't want to be her son. She is.
Right. Nobody wants to be her son, right? I mean, like if we were in that circumstance, we would feel similarly that I don't want to be her son. She's so bad. That's not what we want to desire. Please continue. She's horrible, he says.
Suniti smiled. By worshipping Narayana, you can achieve anything. By such worship, your great grandfather, Lord Brahma, became qualified to create the universe. Even great yogis who have controlled their minds and life here worship Narayana. Your grandfather, Swambhava Manu, who performed great sacrifice and distributed charity in order to satisfy Narayana, he thus achieved the greatest material happiness and at the end of his life went back to the spiritual world. No other deity can give such a result. My dear son, after being insulted by your stepmother, you have come crying to me. Unfortunately, I am unable to help you. Lord Narayana, however, is more kind than millions of mothers. Go to
Oh,
him, for he is always most affectionate and tender in his dealings with his devotees.
oh,
Even those,
let's
yeah,
pause. That is so beautiful. Krishna is more kind than millions of mothers. And in place of mother, we can put husband, we can put support, we can put parents, we can put children, we can put any of the relationships that fail us in this material world. Those relationships that disappoint us, that make us feel a sense of frustration, incompleteness, where we feel neglected, betrayed, or abused, or manipulated. Krishna is so much more than that one relationship which we find it disappointing. So there is no reason for a devotee to lament. I really like that. That Narayana is more kind than millions of mothers. I like that, millions of mothers. M-O-M, M-O-M, mom. Yeah, so hopeful. Krishna is so hope-giving. We all go through some relationship like this, and it should be a springboard for us to turn to Krishna. That's why, even as a professional psychotherapist, astrologer, whenever I see people who have difficult karma, I actually see hope for them more than for those who have good karma. Because when we have good karma, we become complacent. We have everything. We got life the way we want. But when we don't have, that's the greatest opportunity. Either we are doomed and become addicts and become materialists and go to hell, or with that same, that frustration turns us towards Krishna. Please continue.
even those aspiring for liberation take shelter of him by following severe vows. Dhruva's face set in a serious expression. What vows must I follow? You are too young to follow difficult vows, my son.
5 years old. Yeah.
You need simply always think of him with faith and devotion. This yoga of devotion is easy even for a young child like you. I don't want liberation or devotion, mother. I want a kingdom greater than father's. Maybe I should worship the goddess of fortune. Suniti waved a finger. My dear son, as far as I am concerned, I do not think anyone other than the Supreme Lord, Narayana, can permanently remove your distress. I know that even highly placed gods like Brahma seek benedictions from the goddess of fortune, but she is always eager to serve Narayana. Dhruva looked up at the
Let's pause there. Snehati Gandharvika Mataji, can you make a note of these 2 points here? I do not think anyone other than the Supreme Lord can remove your permanently or remove your distress. This one, and also the previous statement here, Krishna is more kind than millions of mothers. And also this point, go to him for he's always most affectionate and tender. Maybe you can just take a screenshot or something like that. Thank you. This one, Lord Narayana, and this one. This is so wise, right? Like no other person, demigod can give us permanent release from distresses. Demigods only can give us temporary benedictions. Where did we stop? Yeah. Dhruva looked up at
Dhruva looked up at the paintings of Vishnu, which decorated his mother's apartment. She loved him more than anyone and surely wanted his success. He would follow her advice. The boy dried his face with his hands and gave his mother a hug. He lowered himself from her lap and walked from one painting to another. Suniti watched him for a few moments. Thankfully, he seemed to have calmed down. The queen heaved a deep sigh. How painful it was to hear how he had suffered at Suruchi's hands. But what could she do? The king hardly gave her any attention at all. She asked Dhruva to join her when he was finished looking at the paintings and then retired to her room, followed by her anxious attendants, including Dhruva's nurses. All the ladies were gently distressed by recent events and they needed to vent their grief out of Dhruva's ears hot. Dhruva carefully examined them.
This is such a special moment because you see, Prabhupada always emphasized paintings. He always emphasized that paintings give us it's like a window to the spiritual world. Without that, it will be very difficult for the mind to imagine. We're very kind of impersonalist by default. So these paintings give us a glimpse of who Krishna is and how he looks. So then we can meditate on his form.
Mataji,
yes.
My voice is audible?
Yes.
I have a question. Like, as far as I remember, in Bhagavatam, we do not get so much details, right? Small details. So, during these books, Krishna Rama Prabhu took some guidance or some more details from other books?
Puranas, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he refers to other Puranas and then he comes. Yeah, that's why I kind of like to read this because it gives us like a whole background in this story.
Full pictures.
Yeah. It's very beautiful because it stays in our mind strongly. Because in Bhagavatam, it just says, oh, he went to sit on the lap and Suruchi didn't let him. That's it. But here there's a whole emotion and everything is described. And this is also called like artistic license. You know, many of our acharyas also did it. Like they will take from one Purana or they will refer and then they will expand on it because they want to give us the full picture. We have seen, right, on Bhagavatam cover, there is the father pushing away little Dhruva from his lap.
Right.
But there
And
is so much psychology behind how controlled he was, by Suruchi.
right,
All
right.
this,
And even how like Suruchi, she got to know, and how she is specifying, it's really, it gives us the full picture. Yeah, it's amazing. Right,
especially it gives us a glimpse into Dhruva Maharaj's feelings.
right.
Because that little boy, he's like, feels so, because he's a Kshatriya, his blood is boiling with the fact he's neglected. I mean, even a small child who's poor, and you give them, like I remember even like very, very poor people, like beggars, when we do distribution of food or chadar or something. One time it happened to me. I was giving out blankets for last winter. And then there was one lady, she started comparing the length of one chadar of the other lady. And you know how hurt she became and everything. And finally, I had to go and give her another big blanket because she was becoming so upset. And these are beggars, sitting and begging. And then I actually figured out she also does service in the temple. I thought she was one of the beggars, but it was like a confusing situation. But the point is, what to speak of Dhruva Maharaj? If a little widow who has nobody, nothing, no home, no shelter, and like takes charity from strangers, if she can feel that way, how would have Dhruva felt? Such a royal lineage, such a royal blood. How much he must have felt that determination to be able to make such a firm decision to go and worship Narayan and perform austerities. And actually, we can learn from the determination of Dhruva. If we could all turn our determination to Krishna.
Right.
I remember when I was like 18 years old, I studied Dhruva Maharaj's story. When I was going through a situation in life, like with marriage and all, my parents wanted me to marry somebody I didn't want, and this and that. And when I read this story, it came to me that I should perform austerities because I really want a qualified husband. I don't want to marry these losers. And there was one devotee I wanted to marry. And I remember thinking that devotee would be nice because he used to be taking care of my sadhana and all that. And I thought that devotee is the only one I knew. I didn't know. I was going to girls' school and everything. I didn't know many men. So then I thought that devotee will be good. And then I started doing this pujas. I would listen to some senior Vaishnavis like this. And one of the Brahmanis gave me one of the procedures to do. And then I started doing that. But in my mind, when I started that initially, I wanted to marry that particular devotee like that. But then as I did it, like maybe 2-3 weeks into that puja, my mind changed. And then something internally, like Krishna, it was, told me, no, don't ask for that person. That person is not, ask for somebody better than him. And honestly, I didn't even know anybody like that. It was like, it wasn't like that anyway. And then I started to say to Krishna, I want somebody much better than this devotee. Very I had no clue. And this devotee I knew since I was 14. This person I thought I should marry. So then I changed my intention of the puja. Then I asked Krishna, please, I want somebody much better than this devotee. I want somebody who's very dedicated to Prabhupada and, like this. And then the last day of this puja, that supposed puja ending, my husband then, now my husband called. I had known him a little bit. He'd come to our house for the program, this, that. He knew me since I was 3 years old, by the way. My husband knew me because he used to come to my house with my uncle, who was a brahmachari. And then he called up and then he said, actually, I just wanted to tell you that I had a dream. And in that dream, the Lord actually told me that, I am happy as a brahmachari, but I had this dream. And in this dream, I was told that I should marry you. And I was shocked because my husband was like 20 years older, foreigner. I saw him like Guru Maharaj. And but then, can you believe the last day of the puja, I'm with my gamcha, about to go to the shower, to take the shower to complete the last puja. I picked up the call and then I just told him, Prabhuji, I'm very busy right now. Please call me later. I just kept the proposal. I was busy. I wanted to complete the puja. But the point I'm trying to come to is, I'm just a girl from a urban city, and a little bit of neglect from this devotee who I wanted to marry, and nobody was there to help me, support me, and my parents wanted to marry some karmi. That emotion led me to do like austerities and fasting and chanting and all these services, this, that. And I'm just thinking that determination a 5-year-old can have, how much he must have been hurt, and how learn the lesson that these hurts and these disappointments and this kind of cruelty and brutality, it can help us to turn toward Krishna. If it can help us, that's the greatest thing that can happen. And looking back now, it was more than 20 years ago in my life. Those were the best moments of my Krishna consciousness, because I literally, powerlessly, completely surrendered to Krishna. I didn't want to marry some loser. I couldn't marry this devotee because he was neglecting me, and I had no idea what to do. And this proposal, when it came from nowhere, everything looked bleak. Who's this brahmachari? No money, no education, no job. Should I do it? Is it really Krishna? Like that, So those were the best spiritual moments for me, because I was so attached to Krishna and I had nobody to depend to. So Dhruva is in a similar situation, right? I mean, like I was in a similar situation like Dhruva. I had nobody to depend on. No parents, no father is neglectful. Mother doesn't have the power to help. The ministers are pawns of the king. The stepmother is brutal. And then who he's going to go to? And he's looking at these pictures of Vishnu. And there is this spark of devotion and determination rising in his heart. Although the intention is to get a kingdom, he's still taking shelter of Vishnu. Akama sarva kamova. Moksha kamodharadi. It doesn't matter what is our desire, as long as we take shelter of Krishna. Because like I said, when I took shelter of Krishna, even though initially my mood was I wanted to marry that particular devotee, I slowly realized that devotee doesn't care for me. That devotee doesn't really respect me. So immediately Krishna helped me to change my mind. And okay, no, not that person. Later on, when I heard how he treats his wife, how he locks her in the home and this and that, I was like, I'm every day grateful that, I didn't marry that devotee. So like that, Krishna is very kind. He can change our mind if our desire is not right. And that's Dhruva Maharaj conclusion story as well. Yeah. Snehavati, would you like to continue reading?
I'm not sure you'll be able to hear or not.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Maybe Rajeshwari Radhika Mataji.
Mataji, I have a comment here. Like we face similar situation in our life, right? Not only us, like everyone face, but it can turn out to be very like depressing, or sometimes people may want to do some adharmic things and all. But if you turn at that moment to Krishna, the same like a calamity, the greatest calamity can turn out to be the greatest blessings, just like you said. So it is like a very important to remember at that time what to do. Like, instead of just becoming depressed or doing something wrong, if we become very determined and turn our face towards Krishna and have faith, and then try to please the Lord, He will actually make our difficult situation to the, just like you said your story, the greatest blessings in our life. That's so hopeful.
And Krishna knows what is best for us.
Yes, and these are the moments like in the beginning we feel like so difficult situation, and later on when we turn back to our life and see, we feel like Krishna is giving us opportunity to go to him, or like closer to him, and also he has some hidden gifts for us if we just can go through that situation. He has like so many gifts for us, special gifts. Very hopeful situation.
Calling Krishna in every circumstance. Yeah. Thank you. Rajeshwari Radhika Mataji, would you like to read a little bit?
Hare Krishna. From where to start?
The last line. Dhruva carefully examined the images.
Image of Narayana. In some, he was depicted with the goodness of fortune in the spiritual world. In others, he was portrayed in his form as Vishnu, riding on Garuda, while in others, he was shown offering benedictions to his devotees. The child stood deep in thought. His mother had always worshipped Narayana. Why had he not answered his prayers? Dhruva noticed that many of the devotees in the paintings were performing austerities in the forest. Perhaps he too should do the same. That seemed the best way to please the Lord. Without further thought, he left his mother's apartment unnoticed and unseen by the guards. He ran out of the palace compound towards the nearby forest. From within Dhruva's heart, Vishnu noted Dhruva's strong determination to engage in his loving devotional service. He informed the sage Narada, inspiring him to go immediately and help Dhruva. Learning of Dhruva's resolve, Narada was astonished. How could such a young child leave his family home and enter the forest alone? When he found Dhruva, it was almost dark. The boy sat fearlessly under a tree, imitating the devotee he had seen in the painting. His cross-legged, with his eyes closed, trying to meditate. Narada watched him for a few moments. Wow, amazing! How amazing was the warrior spirit! They were unable to tolerate even a slight insult. The sage gently stroked the boy's head. Dhruva snapped open his eyes. He immediately recognized the famous sage with his black deer skin, golden hair, and golden veena. He fell flat in obeisances and then stood with folded hands, as he had seen his father do when Narada visited the royal court. Narada smiled. My dear Dhruva, you are only a small boy. You should be playing sports and other light-hearted games. Why are you so upset about being dishonored? Children are frequently chided. Do not take it too seriously. Dhruva's features were set in firm lines. I am a prince and the queen insulted me in court. Narad knelt down next to Dhruva. Dear boy, I can see you are mature for your age. You understand things that other children may find difficult. So please try to understand that even if your honors were insulted, it is no reason to become upset. Dhruva's expression did not change. Listen, continued Narada. There is no need to be angry with your stepmother or father. Honor and dishonor came as a result of our act in the past lives. The reactions to our own deeds are the sole reason for our suffering and enjoyment. This is the Lord's arrangement. Knowing this, an intelligent person remains peaceful in all circumstances. Dhruva looked down. He did not want to offend Narada, but he had no intention of going home until he had seen Narayana. Narad stood up and looked down at Dhruva for several moments. The Lord wanted him to help the boy. If Dhruva was to succeed in his aim, he wanted have to be completely steadfast in his practice. The sage needed to test his determination further. He said, I know you want to follow the mystic process of meditation that your mother mentioned. However, in my opinion, ordinary Men cannot undergo the austerities required. Lord Narayana is difficult to please. I know many sages who life after life renounce the world and perform severe austerity and meditation. But still were unable to attain him. That is why I suggest you stop now and go home. When you are older and by Narayana's grace you have been properly trained by a spiritual master, then under your guru's guidance you may practice mystic yoga. It is better you wait till then. In the meantime, practice feeling satisfied in all circumstances, distress or happiness. Know that in all situations we were receiving the just reaction of our past deed by the Lord's will. If you practice tolerance, then very soon you will achieve spiritual enlightenment, and become free from the cycle of birth and death. Here is another important piece of advice for your good. Instead of envying a more qualified person, be happy to receive him. Instead of dominating a less qualified man, show him compassion. When you meet an equal, instead of competing, treat him.
We can pause here for today, but you can complete that sentence. Treat him till here. You can complete.
Treat him as a friend. If you follow this advice, you will be happy even while within this material world.
Wow, this is so.
What should we do in this kind of advice? Like, see, Narada is giving this advice
Exactly
to be tolerant, but he was so determined because of, see, how Dhruva turned into this condition because he has that desire, because he got insulted. So everyone, like when we are facing, we don't have this kind of determination to see Lord. We become like tolerant. We follow the instruction of Narada, be composed and, tolerant. We never thought of that, in that situation, if we had such a burning desire.
Well,
we can.
I don't know. At least for me, it's not easy to follow Narad Muni's instruction because when I'm burning, I'm burning. There is nothing, whatever my spiritual master says, whatever my husband says, whatever my senior devotees say, there are moments in my life when I want to do something, I want to do something. And it may be something mundane, not even like, like as big as what Dhruva Maharaj is wanting, right? But that's again, like depending on our natures, we will either bend or be flexible, and depends on how important something is for us. Let's say, okay, I'm just giving an example because you're a mother. Let's say some harm comes to a child, if somebody is trying to come and, look at your child in a whatever way, like you may like look at that person and, oh, Durga in you will come up. The determination that you will have, you will become a lioness in order to protect the child. Even if somebody says, like I have a friend, okay, she had an incident with her daughter. There was somebody who was trying to like molest her daughter like that. And oh my God, you should have seen, none of these instructions will work. If you tell the mother, be calm, be tolerant, it's because of the karma of your daughter that is, nothing can stop a mother in that situation. You know what I mean? So even though the incident was over and that person, she made sure that that person was brought in front of it. Nothing happened, it was just an attempt. And then she brought that person in front of everybody and got him beaten up by the whole crowd. And that's what can happen when something matters to us the most. So what I'm saying is, it depends on how much a particular thing matters to us. Maybe in some circumstances, say the neighbor insulted me and I'm feeling disturbed, and then I call Rajeshwari Radhika and say, oh, you know what, I feel this way. And then she says, just relax, Radha Govinda, this is some karma, just be tolerant, don't be in this mode, it's okay, like that. And then I may be pacified. But in an important relationship, if I feel neglected and I feel like my whole life was depending on that particular relationship, accepting me, validating me, and that goes haywire, nobody's instruction, nothing can actually affect. But the point here about Dhruva, there are a few things here. One is that he was so innocent, he was so pure, that he was told that Narayana is powerful. He realized mother can't help, father can't help. And then he got this, he had that determination that, he went to the king pushed him away. He went to the minister ignored. Then he went to the mother was powerless. Then he said, who can solve this for me? Then he heard the word Narayana, and he's a 5-year-old boy. He doesn't have much experience of living the world or nothing, but he's convinced. He's having full faith in his mother. In fact, Prabhupada says that the mother was his guru, because she instructed him to worship Narayana. So actually, mother was his guru, who actually taught him the path, like that. And so my conclusion, according to my experience, again, like according to my nature, I would say, is that there are times that we need to go through something, and Krishna will give us some lessons. We may not eat directly, we may try to eat in an indirect way by going through, say, certain friendship. I had that experience some time ago before I found all of you. I was struggling with association. I needed association, and I started hanging out with one devotee that was not like-minded. And then it affected me in a negative way. And I recall, very, very confession moment. My husband never, ever forbids me from associating with anybody, or don't do this. So he's very, very, very cautious. He doesn't do that, especially spiritual things. He never forbids me. But that particular devotee, he said, be careful, don't associate with her, don't associate with her, don't go with her. He was constantly warning me, right? But I didn't want to listen. And then I have another friend also. That person also said, but I don't understand why you are hanging out with this person who has no common interests at all. And I didn't listen. There was this need, for friendship and for association, that I hung out with this person for a while, and it was not good for me. Even now, I'm paying the price of not having good association. I mean, I wouldn't say good, bad, because again, it's relative. I would say it wasn't beneficial for me. Okay. But what I learned is that sometimes Krishna, even if we make a bad decision, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not that the bad decision will become good or something, but even with that bad decision, if I take shelter of Krishna, if I do my best to let Krishna in, even through that bad decision, Krishna can teach certain lessons. And one of the lessons I learned is how valuable like-minded Sangha is. For example, showing up at 5 o'clock to be with even few devotees, but it's diamond, because that nourishes my spiritual desire. It waters my Bhakti Lata Bij. And now I'm valuing it more, because when I didn't have it and I went for association which was not about Bhagavatam, not about, this person was very much on other aspects of health and beauty and whatever. So it didn't help me spiritually. And I realized when I'm not spiritually helped, how weak I can become, how trivial things I can get stuck on. And so I learned that lesson the hard way. I could have listened to my husband, but maybe then I would, I could have. But I'm just saying that I can be very stubborn. If I want to do something, I want to do something. then Krishna says, fine, do it. You'll have to pay a price for it. But fine, even through that, I'll teach you some lessons. So I think if our desire, this is my husband's principle to me, and it has worked for me, or I believe in it. So he often says, if your desire is not sinful, okay, if your whatever it is that I want to go to Kirtan in the midnight, Okay, it's not sinful desire. You want to go to kirtan, right? Or you want to do something which is not very allowed or acceptable. I want to do a course. I want to do something. If it's not sinful thing, he says, okay, get it out of your system. Do it, especially in certain areas and phases. But in case of Dhruva Maharaj, it's a very big desire. He has to dedicate fully his attention and hope. The chances Narad Muni is giving him is very little. He's not saying, I'll teach you how to do, you can do it. He's saying it's not possible. Even great rishis after lifetime, they can't achieve Narayan. And if I am determined about something and somebody comes and tells me like that, hey, you can't do it. Even in this life, you can't do it. You have to do lifetime after lifetime. Then again, I'll think, is it worth it or not? So it depends on your desire, I will say. If it is about going somewhere for a vacation, okay, I'm just saying, like you want to go, just as a random example, so let's say you want to go to Manali with your husband and kids for a vacation. I know it's not a Krishna conscious desire. It's very kind of, very, very simple, mundane type of thing, but it's not sinful. You want to go with your husband and kids only, right? So, and then somebody may tell you, Mataji, why don't you go to Jagannath Puri? Why don't you go to some, like a devotional place instead? Go to Govardhan instead of Manali, or something like that. Somebody may say, and look in your heart and see what is the feeling, what is the we call it, like intuition. Yeah, what is your intuition? Sometimes the intuition says, no, I really want to do this. And sometimes we may do it and not have a good experience. Sometimes we may do it and we may have a neutral experience. But at least it's out of the way. But if it is something huge like marrying somebody, or something like getting a job, or getting something huge that may take you years and years of commitment, and many people are telling you, don't do it. I have done many decisions in my life like that, like not listening. I was not at all into accounts and maths, and I took it up just to prove to my relatives. My friend used to tell me, don't do that. It's not your subjects. Take the subjects that you like. I wanted to prove to my relatives that I can. So I took up subjects, So there are things that we go against our intuition or against our nature or something. So my very simple answer will be, if the desire is something that can be easily mitigated, if it's a small thing, it can be, you can get over it, do it. If it's a huge thing and like that, take time, talk to well-wishers, consider different options, be in Sattva Guna, because Rajas means, no, I will do it and I will die, but I will do it. But then we may not have the strength and the determination of Dhruva to do it actually. That's passion, right? And Tamas Guna means like not doing it, or to think that without doing this, I'm a failure, or if I go to Manali, then I'm going to drown myself in sin and I will never be Krishna conscious. That's tamasic. We do it, but we do it with tamaguna, thinking that, oh, I'm doing a bad thing, and then we feel guilty and then we feel bad. We don't need to do that. Exactly. Modes of nature. So we can make, even if it's not the ideal thing to do, if it's not sinful, and you feel that I can't follow. Even Dhruva could not follow Narad Muni's instruction because his burning desire was so strong in him. And also Narad Muni was testing Dhruva Maharaj to see if he really wants it or not. So some considerations. I will say it's based on case to case basis, case by case. Who is the person? Who are you? What's your nature? What is the desire? And what's your capacity? And who is the person who's advising you against it? All these things need to be considered. Then a decision to be made by prayers, by meditation, chanting, and in the mood of humility. Krishna, please help me to make a decision that's favorable. It's going to be favorable for my Krishna consciousness. Like that. But be kind to yourself. Even if you in the past made some decisions which is not, be kind. Okay, move on. Oh yeah.
Mataji, and I also I'm thinking it also matters to the like according to the person's nature, right? Just like you said, case to case. Sometimes we may also, in our case or in others' case, when we give advice and all, it's very important, right? Sometimes, let's say, like here we understood that Dhruva is from like Kshatriya background, right? So if you have that background and we are giving advice like, which is suitable for a Brahmana, like tolerate and all, it may harm the person also, right? Sometimes they may not be able to tolerate and they wanted to do something and we are not allowing them to do.
Well, no, Brahmana and Kshatriya, you can't harm them. Only Shudra you can harm, because Shudras will depend on others excessively, extremely. A Kshatriya, whatever he'll do, he will not get affected. I mean, Narad Muni, who can be more powerful than Narad Muni in giving instruction? Even demons will listen to him. Demigods listen to him. But this little Dhruva is not going to listen because he's Kshatriya. So Brahmanas are also similar. They will nod their head. They'll say, okay, but then they'll do what they want. Brahmanas and Kshatriyas don't have uncertainty and doubts in their mind. They know who they are, they know what they want, and they're not going to get convinced by anybody, even if the path is not maybe ideal or whatever. Even what I'm saying is, being Krishna conscious is one thing, but to be Sattva Guna is another thing. Or I'm sorry, being Krishna conscious is one thing. Being Varnashrama, whether you're a Brahmana or Kshatriya or Vaishya, Shudra is another thing. You can be a devotee and be a Kshatriya, like Dhruva Maharaj here. He wants Krishna, he wants to worship Narayan, he wants the desire to be met, but he's Kshatriya. He's not going to get convinced by anybody. He's not going to get convinced. That's a Kshatriya. So, of course, in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada says, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. All this young people were all confused. I don't know what I should become. Should I become an engineer? Should I become a doctor? That's Shudras. Only Shudras will find themselves in uncertainty what to do in life. Should I do this? Should I not do this? This is only Shudra tendency. A Brahmana and a Kshatriya are very clear. Even Vaishya, to a great extent, they're very clear. I like to do business, I like to buy, and then I like to sell it for more, and this is what I like to do. Think of profits and think of charity, and that's what a Vaishya does. Very clear, no confusion about what should I do with my life, what should I study, what work should I do. And same with Brahmana and Kshatriya. Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are very clear. So even you, like anybody, hypothetical, as when we go to somebody, some mentor tells us something, if we are strongly Brahminical or Kshatriya, we will not listen to them. We will not listen. We will not be able to listen to them. There will be a sense of strong voice. I told you my parents wanted me to marry a loser, but also the devotee that I was following, etc. That devotee also wanted me to marry somebody, but I didn't want to marry that somebody. So sometimes we are clear. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes we have that intuitive, loud voice telling us, no, don't marry this person. No, don't go this place. Don't do this. There's this intuition screaming from inside. And Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are stronger in tapping into it. Shudra mentality make us dependent on our masters like that. We are very, very dependent. Unless really a spiritual master tells us, do this, don't do this. If we become too dependent on anything we have to depend on mentors. It's very much, I'm not saying Shudra is bad. Shudra is good. If we don't have our own intelligence, better to depend on somebody else. But then that person has to be qualified, and you shouldn't do it with resentment. If you follow somebody, if you accept somebody as your master, the Shudra will follow without thinking about, but they're not doing it properly. The Shudra will just be satisfied and follow the master. But when you're not able to do, that's the symptom of Kali Yuga. We are all mixed varnas. We have a little bit of this also, we have a little bit of that also. We can't follow also because we have a little bit of that intelligence which is screaming and saying, hey, but whatever this mentor is saying is not fitting into my nature, But then we also are wanting to follow. So that's Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to find people who understand us and give us the right decision, etc. So we can't expect people around us to help us make right decisions. Sometimes their own life is a mess. their own life, they may be making many mistakes. So we can't expect it. This is Kali Yuga. Okay, so we can end here today.